dear devotees, thank you so much for joining this week's remembrance session. We welcome everybody. Please accept my most humble obeisances. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu vacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo namo namah. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Charu Swami Niti Namine Snigdha Cheta Supraneta Bhakminam Charasa Plutam Prabhupada Gata Prana Naumi Bhakti Charu Pada Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatani Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Asadi Gaur Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama. So it is my great honor and privilege to be able to introduce a very dear disciple of Shri Guru Maharaj, His Grace Damodar Prasad Prabhu. Prabhuji traveled with Guru Maharaj and served in full capacity in 2017 and 18. Damodar Prasad Prabhu got introduced to Krishna consciousness in 2015 in Zurich, Switzerland. The very next year in 2016, Prabhu met Guru Maharaj at Zurich. And Guru Maharaj saw his sincerity and later asked him to travel with him. So from 2017, Prabhu started traveling with Guru Maharaj. And when Guru Maharaj started the D-Land project, he was there too. He was his Srila Gurudev. Guru Maharaj always relied upon him for so many things. And you see, as everything they had to do their own. So he was quite expert in handling different equipments and heavy vehicles like tractor and bobcat and many other things. And he had also some experience with horses earlier. So Guru Maharaj told him to take care of cows. And currently Prabhu is serving in Zurich temple in different capacities. And last year in 2021, Prabhu took the role of temple president and continuing since then. So he has so much treasure for us to share. So let's listen from Prabhu about his wonderful time with Srila Guru Maharaj. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances and to all the devotees. It's nice to see you again after a long time. And yeah, thank you for the invitation. Of course, I feel quite shy to speak in front of you because you're all my seniors. Like you said, when I came to Krishna consciousness and in 2015 and then 2017, I was with Guru Maharaj. I wasn't even initiated at that time in the initial first weeks. And all of you were there. Most of you were with Guru Maharaj already. So I thought I would just maybe explain how I got to meet Guru Maharaj, how I got connected. And then in general, I would like to speak about a few memories I have, which maybe show some of his qualities, his divine qualities. So I took some notes. I will just refer to my notes so that I have some sequence. So you said that in 2016, when I met Guru Maharaj, he saw my sincerity. It was a little bit different, to be honest. I joined here in Zurich in 2015 in New Jagannath Temple. And in 2016, Guru Maharaj used to come annually. He would to come. In the early years of 80, 90, what I heard, he came longer for several days, sometimes maybe even a week too. But in the last few years, he didn't come so often because he was very busy. Of course, in India with Ujjain and other projects, but then also having so many disciples all over the world. But he came for 2 days in 2016. He spent one night in the temple. And I remember when I saw him for the first time, somehow or other I felt attracted to him. And you know, I don't want to make something up. I couldn't say it was something he said in a class or anything like that, but it was just his presence. I could feel his consciousness and his purity, and that made me so attracted to him. And usually I'm more of a, sometimes I'm shy, I can be shy, so I didn't have any experience of approaching any sannyasi or guru in ISKCON. But when I saw him, I knew I have to try to talk to him. And at that time, Gora Hari Prabhu, who actually invited me to speak today, he was traveling with Guru Maharaj. He was assisting him. And so I met Gora Hari in the staircase, and I told him, you know, I'm meeting Maharaj for the first time and I feel so inspired. Would it be possible for me to talk to him? And Gora Hari Prabhu said, see, he's only here for one night and he will meet his disciples. He won't have any time, I'm sorry. And he left. And I was so, yeah, I was so sad. I felt like Krishna is telling me I'm not qualified. So I just dropped the idea of approaching him and then continued with my devotional service in the temple. Then in the same year, I went to India the first time, first to Mayapur and then to Vrindavan. And somehow or other, I very early in my Krishna consciousness, I knew I need a spiritual master. So when I came to India, I was in the Holy Dham, but I was kind of sad because I didn't have a spiritual master. I felt like even though I'm in the Dham, I'm not connected because I don't have my guru. So I was very desperate and I was praying in Vrindavan also to a Vanchakalpa, a desire tree. And then just a day later, one friend of mine, he came and told me that Bhakti Charu Swami is at Govardhan. And that was just the day before Prabhupada's disappearance day. Maybe Rishabhananda, you've been there, Prabhu? At the time, probably yes. So when I heard his name, I forgot about him, kind of, because I was so sad about what happened that I didn't think about it anymore. But then when I heard his name, I remembered again and I was so inspired. So I asked him, how can I go? And he connected me to one god sister of ours. And I think she also spoke here before, Kirti Kumari Mataji. So she anyway wanted to go from Vrindavan to Govardhan, so she took me with her in a taxi. And then Guru Maharaj gave a wonderful class glorifying Srila Prabhupada. And then after the class, she took me and she introduced me to Guru Maharaj. And he was very kind and he was happy to hear that I'm from Switzerland and I'm doing book distribution. And then we left back to Vrindavan. And then she asked me if I want to have a darshan with him. And I said, yeah, of course, why not? And I mean, by telling all this, what I want to mention is, it shows how personal Guru Maharaj was. And he was expert in reciprocation. You know, I think he could see some sincerity in me and he reciprocated. And of course, that inspired me more and more to come closer. So I told her, yes, I would like to meet him. And then in Vrindavan, I was kind of spaced out. You know, first time in India for a Western guy like me, it was a lot of tapasya. And then I kind of, I didn't know if I should go left or right. I was just in Vrindavan, ISKCON property. And then one day she came and she was quite upset with me. She said, hey, Guru Maharaj is asking for you. Because she told him that I would like to meet him. And so he was asking her, when will he come? And she was very upset. She was saying, how come he has to? And Rasananda Prabhu, he was the devotee who was kind of taking care of the darshan, so he made sure I don't take too much time. And I went inside, and I even remember, I mean, it's kind of embarrassing, but somebody told me that you should touch the feet of a sadhu, so that I did that. Where I did Dandavat and touched his feet. Only later on I realized that actually it's not really proper to do that. It's very intimidating. Anyway, I did it, and Guru Maharaj, he just accepted. Yeah, graciously he accepted that. And so he was very personal when he knew I'm from Switzerland, so he spoke German to me for a few sentences. I was surprised that he, of course, later on I knew that he was in German studying. And I heard from one god sister in Switzerland that he allows some devotees, if they want, to travel with him. So this also clarifies the point. He didn't take me with him. I asked him, Maharaj, I heard that in order to get to know you better, you also allow for some devotees to come with you for some time. And I asked him if I can go. And you know how Guru Maharaj said, yes, of course, you can come. So he told Rasananda, give him my email address, and then I paid my obeisances, I left. And somehow in this moment, I accepted him as my spiritual master, but I heard in ISKCON, there's a certain etiquette, you should wait a bit. So I didn't say anything. I went back to Germany at the time for book distribution. And then I was doing the Prabhupada marathon. And in the marathon, I had one very bad day. It was difficult. So then I decided I want to take shelter today. So I wrote him an email. I asked him if I can chant his pranam mantra. That was in Heidelberg in Germany. I was distributing. And then I didn't have internet connection at the time. Only when I had Wi-Fi. So I wrote the email in the evening, and then during the night and in the morning I didn't have Wi-Fi, and then only when I was at the university preaching, I connected. And it was not even maybe 12 hours later, I already had a reply from Guru Maharaj. He said, yeah, of course, I will accept you. So that's how I got initially connected. And then Krishna Kishore Prabhu was the secretary of Guru Maharaj. He didn't get his visa for Australia. So he wrote to me, he said, can you please go with Guru Maharaj? And he anyway knew that I want to go. And he even asked if I can stay longer, something like that. So in 2017, in April, I went to Sydney to join Guru Maharaj there and then to be with him. Initially, it was planned to be for 1 month, but it turned out to be longer. So that's how I met him. I started to travel with him. And just to continue that, how personal Guru Maharaj was and how he just reciprocated with my desire, because I had this strong desire to be with him. And this came because in my initial days of Krishna consciousness, I heard a lot from Shruti Kirti Prabhu, who was the servant of Srila Prabhupada. And I always felt like, wow, that's the perfection of life. You can just be with your spiritual master. And so I had this desire to just be with him. And I think he could see and feel that. So when from Australia, we flew to the US, then we were in Los Angeles, we went to Laguna Beach, and in Laguna Beach, he just mentioned randomly, he never spoke to me, but somebody was asking about his travel itinerary. And then Guru Maharaj told, it was many devotees, and he said, anyway, next time you ask Damodar, I was not initiated at the time. He said, you ask Dominic, he will give you all the information. And I was like perplexed, what does he mean? And of course, I was very happy, and I could feel he gave me some hint. And then one very memorable incident was we flew then from, I think even from LA to Seattle. And the first time I was sitting next to Guru Maharaj in the plane. And I was so nervous, of course, being so close and alone, nobody else was there. And at that time also, he asked me, out of the blue, he was silent, and all of a sudden he turned to me and he asked me, why did you choose me as your spiritual master? And of course, I was very nervous. I felt now I have to give a good answer. And so I told him that I just felt attracted to him by his purity, and yeah, I was glorifying him. And while I was talking, he was kind of he was looking at me, but I could feel he didn't how to say, he didn't feel satisfied. That's how I felt, and I became more nervous. Like, he's not, and usually you expect when you talk to someone that he will reciprocate, you know, say something, acknowledge, but he just looked at me and I became very nervous. So I thought I better say something good. And then I remembered how, of course, in Govardhan, I heard him speak about Srila Prabhupada, and I mentioned that seeing how he is so loyal to Srila Prabhupada, I received a lot of faith and trust in him. And then when he heard that, he became very enthusiastic. He said, yes, that is the qualification. And he went on, he said, it's like in Christianity, if you have, in Christianity, you have so many saints, but there is only one Jesus Christ. And actually, interestingly, I listened to the tape of the Govardhan lecture he gave. He exactly said the same thing in the lecture. Of course, I didn't remember because my memory is very bad, but that's what he said. And then he said, he gave me a very important instruction. He said, so you develop your relationship with Srila Prabhupada the way I did, which was very significant. So then he asked me after we spoke, then he said, so when do you want to take initiation? And I didn't say anything. I was just shocked that he asked me, and he said, I will give initiation in Chicago in a few days. If you want, I can give you initiation. And I said, of course. And then he was silent for some time, and then he turned again to me and he asked, do you want to stay with me and travel with me and be my assistant? And of course, again, I was super happy and I said, yes, Guru Maharaj, I would like to. So that's how he showered his causeless mercy on me and how I could spend more time with him. So I would just now relate a few memories that came to my mind, which I should highlight certain qualities. So one of the first instructions he gave me in Sydney, I came from Zurich, and you know, I was so nervous, you know, I never was with such a personality, and so I was thinking, how should I dress myself? You know, and I thought, you know, he's such an exalted devotee, of course I should go in dhoti and kurta. So I just traveled in dhoti kurta, and I didn't even bring anything else. That's all I had. Then when I arrived in Sydney, we spent a few, sorry, just wait until he's muted. So then we spent some time in Australia, and on the day before we left to America, he called me into his room and he asked me, Dominic, do you have some regular clothes with you? And I said, no, very much. And so he turned to another disciple and he told him, go with him and buy some regular clothes. So I was kind of confused, you know, I'm supposed to be a devotee. And of course, later on, I understood that Guru Maharaj, he was very good in relating to the world. You know, he knew that we have to be careful how we present ourselves to the general public. And I just want to connect a few of these incidences where it was about clothes, so you can, yeah, maybe understand how Guru Maharaj was very particular about it. He also then, later on, he asked me to go and buy silk. He he didn't like the fabric I was using because it would wrinkle very easily. So he asked me to go and buy silk. And then in Mayapur, he gave me some Lakshmi, and he said, go to the dhoti wala, the cloth wala, and get some nice silk. So I did that, and he was very happy. And of course, he was happy when the clothes were ironed nicely and it was looking paka. One time in the US, that was during the project in D-Land, we had to go to a bank. We had an appointment in a bank. So I was driving, Guru Maharaj, who was sitting there, and then there was one devotee who came with him. He was a senior devotee and not his disciple, but he was very experienced, and he was from the US. He was a local, so he came to help. And he came in dhoti and kurta to the meeting in the bank. I'm not sure, I think I wore regular clothes. And then we arrived at the location of the bank, and Guru Maharaj told him, you please go and check if he's ready for the meeting, so then we will come. And then when he left the car, he told me that actually it's not nice that he came in dhoti and kurta. He should have come in regular clothes. And then he said that actually in that aspect, I agree. In some ways, I agree to Krishna West. That sometimes we have to dress in the local clothes just to fit in. And then he was silent, and he said, but of course, we don't agree with the philosophy. I don't know if I said too much now, but anyway, we are supposed to share the memories. Because sometimes I want to mention, being with Guru Maharaj so close, you hear things which might be confidential, but yeah, I think you can take it in the right way. So yeah, that was something I learned in the very beginning. Then one thing I want to mention, which is maybe a little bit important to understand, when I started to travel with Guru Maharaj, he was the GBC chairman. So it was a very hectic time. He had so many engagements, a lot of responsibility. And I was staying for 6 months in 2017. And then honestly, it was too much for me. I had to go back to my temple. It was just too much traveling and I wasn't used to it. And then I went back. And in end of 2017, again in the book distribution marathon, somehow the desire came to be with him. And I wrote to him an email, and again, he was reciprocating so nicely. He called me on the next day and he asked, so Damodar, what are you doing? You want to come and be with me again? Okay, you come. And then we booked the ticket and I could go again. So that's how personal he was. So as the GBC chairman, I would just like to explain some of the things that happened, which also show his qualities of leadership, and also in the D-Land project. So one thing was, he was very strong, determined. While he was the GBC chairman, there was one issue in New York, in the Brooklyn temple. What happened, the leadership of the temple, they wanted to sell the temple. And they wanted to sell the temple without the approval of the GBC. And the GBC was not in favor of that idea of selling the Brooklyn temple. So Guru Maharaj, as the chairman, he took up that responsibility to secure the Brooklyn temple. And this was an ongoing thing over weeks. I saw Guru Maharaj, he had meetings on almost sometimes on a daily basis. They would discuss how to solve that issue. And then at one point, they made a decision that they will remove the temple president because he didn't accept the GBC anymore and their instructions, and he just wanted to go ahead and sell the temple. So then they decided to remove him, and they had to remove him on the place, on the spot. And so the plan was being made that they will go, a few of these devotees who were involved, including Guru Maharaj, they will go on a Sunday to Brooklyn, and at the Sunday feast they will actually convey the message to the congregation and then remove the temple president. So on that day we went to Brooklyn. We drove from New Jersey, if I remember correctly. And then Guru Maharaj, as the chairman, he had the task to convey that message. And I just want to explain to you, that you can understand it was a very, very strange situation, because Guru Maharaj came inside and there were a few other sannyasis, GBCs. Jayadvaita Maharaj was there, Rompat Swami was there. And they came inside, they were not even welcomed by the temple president. He would just ignore them. And he would go on with the program. He gave a short speech. He would sing some kirtan. And they wouldn't welcome the sannyasis, the gurus, the gypsies. And I was even thinking, how is it possible you're in ISKCON and then the leaders come and you don't even welcome? And so it went on, and then Guru Maharaj was sitting patiently, just waiting and looking what's going to happen. And after some time, it was clear that the temple president, he would just ignore them and continue with the program and, avoid the unpleasant fact that they came for a certain reason. And so the program went on, and he wanted to finish the program and just direct all the devotees to the Prasadam hall. And then Guru Maharaj got up like a lion and he walked to the front. And he announced to everyone, he was not invited to speak, but he said, I have an announcement to make. I'm Bhakti Charu Swami. I'm the GBC chairman, and I came to convey a message of the GBC. And the temple president, he if I don't remember the full details, but he didn't give him the microphone for sure. He actually tried to tell the audience that they shouldn't listen to him. And no, not true. Guru Maharaj, before that, he said, we came to convey that the temple president, he mentioned the name, is not longer the temple president anymore, but the GBC removes him as a temple president. And so the temple president, he just told to the audience, don't listen to him. He's not authorized to do that. I mean, it's a crazy story, but that's what happened. And then a whole argument broke out between the temple president and Guru Maharaj, and he's a Prabhupada disciple. And you could see the argument, it didn't go anywhere. It was a fight basically. And at one, I was just there standing. I didn't know what to do. I was very worried because some of the devotees, they were actually loyal followers of the temple president, meaning they wanted to support him, not Guru Maharaj as the GBC chairman. So I was seriously worried what's going to happen. And Guru Maharaj was so expert in that moment where it was like there was no solution. What he did, he just started to chant Hare Krishna. He's just started to do a kirtan. And then all the devotees, they followed him, and then the kirtan went on for some time. But what happened in the meantime, the temple president went outside and he switched off the lights in the temple room. And there was no windows, meaning it was pitch dark. And Guru Maharaj, then some lights went on and he continued with the kirtan, and then at one point he stopped and he again addressed the audience and he told them that the GBC removes him, and he gave a certain explanation as well. And then the temple president, he called the police. and he told the police that they should remove him and all the followers out of the temple. But the police was standing there and was telling him, we cannot do this. This is a place of worship. They are just worshiping God here. How can we just remove them? So in this way, it was going on. And in the end, Guru Maharaj left and he did his job. He removed him. But of course, then the fight went on. But later on, the temple president was removed. And now the temple is again full in ISKCON's hand, under ISKCON control, and it has not been sold. So that's something we saw. Then one thing also was Guru Maharaj as a leader, he would show the example. And Rishabhananda Prabhu, you know, in D-Land, we had a lot of hard work to perform. We had to plant flowers, we had to cut trees, we had to we had to dig holes to bury trees, all kinds of things. And Guru Maharaj, you know, he would, whenever he saw, I mean, he would give the example anyway, but whenever he saw that the spirit was low because the devotees were tired or hungry or the weather was bad, then he would come and he would himself take a shovel in his hand. Or himself, he would, you know, he had these rubber boots. He would get the rubber boots on and he would step out in the field and just show us how to do it. Rishabhananda Prabhu said, I was designated for the cow care. Once, when the cow was new, we got a new cow. She was saved from being slaughtered. And after a few days, Guru Maharaj wanted her to go out and graze in the field. And actually, I tried in a mood of service. I felt it was not the right time to do that. So because I know that the cows in India and the cows in the West, they're different because they come from a background of being abused violently. So they have a very bad connection or relationship to human beings in general. So my fear was when the cow goes out, we will not be able to control her anymore. And so the cow, eventually she was grazing, but then she ran away. And all of us devotees, we were trying to find her and bring her back. And this went on for 1-2 hours maybe. And Guru Maharaj at one point, he was upset because we didn't manage to bring her back. So he took his chadar, he took his hat, and he came out into the dark night. It was chilly, and he helped us find the cow and bring her back. So that was, I think, for all of the devotees who were present in D-Land, those were very special times because you saw Guru Maharaj in action, and you never saw him like that before. You would go with Guru Maharaj to shop for shopping tours, to Lowe's. That's kind of a shop where you buy building material, and you would go regularly, or you would go to secondhand stores and buy furniture, these kind of things. One thing, Guru Maharaj is very broad-minded. And I have 2 examples where it was shown. In D-Land, one time, there was some issue because we cut some trees which were actually, we didn't really know that we weren't supposed to cut these trees. And then I'm sorry, it's just phone. I'm sorry, I'm just sitting in the office and the phone went off. So then at one point, we got to know that we were not supposed to cut these trees, and we didn't know, you know, what will happen, will we get in trouble? So we decided best will be to, you know, clean the things off so that there will be not a big mess, and the government will also not mind about what happened. And then Please forgive me. So then, at one point, we were discussing this issue with one local person who was in this kind of tree cutting agriculture business. And Guru Maharaj was very honest. That's another quality of Guru Maharaj. He was very honest. So he explained to him what happened and what we planned to do. And this, common man, he listened, and at one point he started to preach to Guru Maharaj because he was a Christian, so he had some values, and he was starting to preach to Guru Maharaj. He said, Swami, why don't you think it's better to be honest? To be honest and go to the government and tell them that this happened and, we did a mistake. Don't you think what you're planning to do maybe is not right? Like this, he preached to him. And Guru Maharaj immediately, when he said that, he listened and he said, yeah, actually, you're right. Yeah, you're right. What you're saying makes sense. And I'm not saying that Guru Maharaj had another plan. We didn't thought it was necessary. But then when this person said, Guru Maharaj just changed his mind. He was so humble. He just took an advice from nobody. And it was basically it was a moral instruction the person gave. And I think in Bhagavatam, I'm not so well versed, but somewhere it's mentioned that one should be ready to accept advice from everyone. I think Chanakya Pandit even says that you should even be ready to accept advice from uneducated person. So Guru Maharaj showed that. Then one time I was very surprised when Guru Maharaj was the chairman. He always tried to protect ISKCON. And at that time we were in Ujjain, and he called me into his office and he asked if I can take a dictation. So I took my phone and I recorded what he said. And Guru Maharaj was speaking about gurus in ISKCON and how gurus in ISKCON have too much power, which comes in the form of money. It's a very serious topic, sensitive topic as well. And Guru Maharaj was going on. He was saying how this is a problem. If the individual gurus have so much power and the GBC doesn't have power, how will the GBC manage? And so he was proposing that the GBC should restrict the gurus in their financial matters more. And so he was doing that, and I was sitting and just waiting till he's finished. And when he was finished, I stopped the recording. And so I was just waiting, see if he needs something else. And then I wanted to leave. And then Guru Maharaj looked at me and he asked me seriously, so what do you think about my proposal? And I was shocked. Why is he asking me? I mean, I'm such a young devotee. I'm not even a devotee. I just came and he's asking me for my opinion. So it took me some time to come up with something. And then I told him, Guru Maharaj, I think it's very nice what he said. And it makes sense, but I think many people will not like it. And then Guru Maharaj started to laugh. He said, yes, many devotees will not like what I said. So that's how broad-minded Guru Maharaj was. Then how long do we have time, Rishabhanam Prabhu?
I think it's 1 hour session, Prabhu. 20 minutes more.
So now we have 40 minutes, we have 20 minutes more.
Yeah, yes, Prabhu.
Oh, I just saw that His Holiness Bhakti Prem Maharaj came. Please accept my humble obeisances. Hare Krishna. So I also wanted to speak about Guru Maharaj being a guru, a teacher, and how he took this responsibility and how I saw he had so many wonderful qualities. And some of the situations which, yeah, they stood in my mind, they stuck in my mind. One time we came to India. I don't go into details because I'm never sure how sensitive these issues are. But we came to India and there was one sannyasi. He was in touch with Guru Maharaj and he told him that his mother left her body. And they spoke in the local language often, but I could kind of understand, you know, because it was a brief thing and I could understand what was going on. And that was going on the phone, but then we came to the place where the sannyasi was staying and we arrived. And on the day where we arrived, they picked us up at the airport. We were brought to the temple. And then on the way to Guru Maharaj's room, we happened to be just Guru Maharaj and the sannyasi and me in the elevator. And I was, of course, wondering how does Guru Maharaj deal with these kind of situations? And then I saw that they were speaking again in the local language I didn't understand about. I was assuming they're speaking about this the leaving of his mother. And Guru Maharaj was kind of quiet, and then in the moment where the elevator arrived at the floor and the doors opened, Guru Maharaj told, and he spoke in English. All of a sudden he spoke in English. And I guess it was his mercy that I can understand also what is the highest standard. He told this sannyasi that you have taken sannyas, you have surrendered to Krishna. Krishna will take care of your mother. Don't worry about anything. And he turned around and walked out of the elevator. And yeah, there I could see how Guru Maharaj could be uncompromising when it came to the philosophy and how to apply it with our culture. And we know in the Vedic culture, a sannyasi, he's supposed to be completely aloof from the social involvement. So Guru Maharaj expected that from his disciples who took such a position. Another instance where I saw how uncompromising Guru Maharaj was, that was in Orlando. And Guru Maharaj would spend a lot of time in Orlando before the D-Land project. He would spend time with Guru Gauranga Prabhu. And Guru Maharaj was just about to take rest. It was during the day. And I was supposed to go and give him a massage. But I received a message on my phone from some god siblings. I didn't know them. I also didn't know where they come from. But they came through me. They received some contact and they knew that I'm with Guru Maharaj. And they told me that the wife, she's pregnant and they've gone to the doctor. And the doctor told them that the child is is kind of invalid. How you say that in English? You know, it's not health issues, but it's having some. Rishabhanan Prabhu, can you help me? Let's say it has some serious health issues. It will not be a normal child, basically. It will be mentally affected. So, and then they said they got this news and now they're thinking of aborting the child. So I was kind of so naive. I mean, in a way, Guru Maharaj was just about to take rest, but I felt this is such a crucial question they are asking that I have to immediately ask him. And Guru Maharaj was already laying in bed. And then I came and I said, Guru Maharaj, I got a message and I think it's important. I would like to ask. So I read the message to him. And Guru Maharaj got furious. He got furious. He said, what do they think who they are? They're gonna abort the child just because the child comes in a way which they maybe don't expect. Maybe it comes, it's not perfect. And he started to explain the law of karma, that whatever Krishna gives, we have to accept. We cannot just kill a child. And he was so agitated that his disciples, they even come up with this kind of idea to kill their child. And then Guru Maharaj at one point, he got up and he was upset, and he turned to me and he said, thank you, Damodar. Now I cannot even sleep anymore. And of course, I felt very bad that I disturbed him. But yeah, that's one side of Guru Maharaj. Then as a guru, he always, of course, had to correct and give his disciples, give corrections. And Guru Maharaj was very expert. He did that in different ways. He could chastise heavily. He could point out mistakes in a very, regular way. But Guru Maharaj was also expert in giving very discreet hints. If he could see, maybe now it's not the time to chastise, he did it in a very discreet manner. And I saw that when I was with him and I received initiation, maybe a week after initiation, somebody told me that I should dye Guru Maharaj's clothes, because from time to time the color fades out. So I should dye them, make them nice saffron again. And so I asked Guru Maharaj, he was taking Prasad, when can I dye your clothes? Can you show me? And he said, I will show you in a week. And he was taking Prasad, and then he asked me, when will you take saffron? And I became shy. I didn't know what to say, and I just looked at him. And then I said, Guru Maharaj, I don't know if should I take saffron? He said, yeah, you can take saffron also. Next time you dye my clothes, you dye your clothes too. So, but then I'm just telling you honestly, then you also see how merciful Guru Maharaj was with me. We came to the place and he showed me, and I dyed his clothes, but I just didn't want to dye my clothes. I just felt I'm not qualified. So I just didn't do it. But he never said a word to me. He never said, why don't you dye your clothes? What happened? He just accepted. But then a little later on, in London, he took prasadam with some of the local leaders in London Yatra, and I was also invited to sit and take prasadam. Sometimes that happened, so I was taking prasadam, and then they were speaking at one point. The leaders were complaining how the young generation is not willing to commit anymore, and then he was saying, the Brahmins, they don't want to take saffron, and Guru Maharaj turned to me and he was just making a small hint that, yeah, even he doesn't want to take saffron. And that's how Guru Maharaj was very expert in a very soft way. He gave some hint, hey, I actually want you to take this step. Another time he asked me, we were speaking about some other devotee, and then he was, all of a sudden he asked me, so what are your plans? It was about marriage or something. He asked me, so what are your plans? I told him, Guru Maharaj, I don't know. What are my plans? And so then he said, so you remain brahmachari for some time. But he was always, when he could see it was difficult, he was very mild. He was sometimes pointing out mistakes very directly. We were on a cruise in Australia, and Guru Maharaj had the desire. Actually, I asked Guru Maharaj because I saw they had a spa. So I went to Guru Maharaj. I asked him if he would like to go to the sauna. And Guru Maharaj, there was not much to do. So he said, okay, let's go. So we went to the sauna, and the sauna was not very hot. And Guru Maharaj, whenever we went to the sauna, I could see he likes when it's hot. So he was asking, is that all, or can we make it hotter? And then I went out to ask, and they said, no, it's a standard. It's just, that's the temperature, you cannot change it. And you know how sauna work, you have to pour water on the hot stone. So then there will be a steam. Actually, it was the steam that was the problem. There was not enough steam. And so I asked them, and they said, no, you can't change. And maybe there was even a sign which said, don't pour water yourself. And so I just thought, I'm being a nice disciple. I went out and I managed to get a water bottle, and I came inside, and before I did it, I looked to him and see if he approves what I want to do. But he immediately stopped me and said, no, don't do it. And then he explained to me, he said, make it a point when there is any rules anywhere, you follow them. Don't just do whatever you like. One time when we went to Russia, Guru Maharaj was invited to speak at the GVC college in Sochi. And there Guru Maharaj doesn't have any disciples, and so it was very different to serve him there, because usually whenever you go somewhere, so many disciples, but there nobody. And so we came, and Guru Maharaj gave a class, then in the evening it got quite late, and it was a lot of traveling also. Then Guru Maharaj went to bed, I gave him a massage, and I went to my... And Guru Maharaj had some health issues, right? He actually had some issues with his teeth. I think many of you remember. And then he had a big surgery in the US. And I don't remember, but he had to replace many of his teeth in that surgery. And after that, he got so sick, ill, he had fever, and he just felt naturally after such a surgery. But the problem was the next day he had a flight to Italy. And Guru Maharaj, he didn't even think about it. He was the GBC chairman, he had to attend meetings, and he had high fever, but he would travel there and just perform his duty. And then we went to Russia, and there I gave him a massage. On the first night, he fell asleep. And then I was tired as well, so I immediately went to my room, I lay down, and I fell asleep. And usually what we had was a bell. And Guru Maharaj had a remote control. He could press the button, and then the bell would ring, and you would go to his room. So I just fell asleep, and all of a sudden the bell rang. So I got up, I went to his room, and Guru Maharaj was standing, the light was on, and I felt like his eyes will burn me to ashes. And he was asking, where is the mosquito plug? There's these mosquito plugs, you plug them in, and then they will put out some, I don't know, some steam, and then the mosquitoes will go away. And I had one of those, but I forgot, I lost him. So I told him, Guru Maharaj, I didn't bring it with me. And he, of course, he got so angry, like he chastised me like anything. And I didn't know what to do, so I just told him, Guru Maharaj, I will try to get one. And it was in the middle of the night in Russia, and nobody could speak English. And it was also quite a remote place, but it was a huge property. So I ran around, and eventually I managed to find one. And then I came back to the room. It must have been like 10 minutes. And I came into the room, and Guru Maharaj was already sitting at his computer, and he was working. So I said, Guru Maharaj, I found something. And Guru Maharaj didn't even look at me, he just said, now it's too late. Now I cannot sleep anymore. So I went out, I felt very bad. And I took rest. And the next morning, I usually would go into Guru Maharaj's room in the morning to see if he needs anything and collect his laundry. But it took me a long time to go inside because I was so worried that, yeah, I'm just disturbing him in his service. He cannot even sleep properly. So I managed to go inside after some time, and he was on the computer, and I was waiting and for some time, and he was working. But then at one point I just managed, I said, Guru Maharaj, can I just say something? And he said yes, and I apologized. I said, Guru Maharaj, I'm so sorry that you couldn't sleep, and yeah, please forgive me. And Guru Maharaj, he was not angry at all. He said, no, that is no problem. He was completely equipoised and fine. He wasn't angry with me. And yeah, I felt so amazed how he can control his anger. It's not that the anger controls him, but he's controlling the anger. Okay, let me just see if there is something I wanted to, because I wrote down many things that came to my mind, but one time, that was in the very first days when I was in Australia with Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj went to Fiji for some days, and because I just came, I didn't have a flight ticket, I didn't have a visa. He told me, you go to New Govardhan, there is a Kirtan festival, and then when I come back, you join me again. So I went there, and somehow when I was at the Kirtan festival, it was very nice, but I got disturbed because at this Kirtan festival, they used to dance so widely, it was like a rock concert. They would, all these things which happen at a rock concert, they would take the devotees on their shoulders and throw him in the air. And I was like, how can we actually glorify the holy name like this? It seems to be too wild. So I was agitated. So then I came back to Sydney, and Guru Maharaj came, and after I waited for a good, good moment where I could ask him. And of course, my motivation was I felt disturbed, and everybody else was enjoying the kirtan. I felt disturbed. I just wanted, that somebody supports my view that this is not correct. So I went to Guru Maharaj. I asked him, Guru Maharaj, I went to this kirtan festival and it was nice, but they dance so wildly, and I even heard that Prabhupada once stopped the kirtan when it was so wild. Like this, I just wanted Guru Maharaj to approve me. And Guru Maharaj was so expert, he could, of course, he can see, he can definitely see me, he can see everything. Then he just said, if you don't like it, you just don't do it. You don't follow, and you don't mind, just go your way. So that was a nice instruction that maybe on an absolute level, yes, it will be better not to do it. But for me, he gave me a different instruction. So I think we came to the end now. I don't want to take too long. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. And sorry if it was a little bit going here and there.
Yeah, wonderful. So many questions, Prabhu, so many questions. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for your time and for your experiences with Guru Maharaj, sharing the Brooklyn Temple case, how determined Guru Maharaj was, how strict Guru Maharaj was with following the rules. Thank you so much, Prabhu. And we have come to an end for the session. So we request devotees to join next week as well. We'll continue every week. Thank you so much, Damodar Prasad, for sharing your experiences. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Vaiष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः.
Srila Guru Maharaj ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande.
Hari Bol.